Yo, what up, everybody? It's your boy Carson Fox with another edition of Fox on West Virginia Mountaineers Sports, and I'm here from a Mountaineers grand paradise, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Once again, on a vacation, but with some news breaking, unfortunately, some sad news in the world of West Virginia University sports. The legend, Mr. Mountaineer, the logo himself, Jerry West, passing away earlier this week at the grand old age of 86. I wanted to get on here for just a few minutes and, pontificate kind of on the career and life of Jerry West, what he means for Mountaineer Nation, how he is emblematic of Mountaineer Nation at large, and kind of, I guess, looking forward and ahead and how WVU can continue to honor Jerry West, both, the athletics department, university, players, so on and so forth. I guess what I want to start out by saying is Jerry West, the grit and determination in the face of continuous adversity, is an understatement. Reading back on his life of what I've been able to read about him, and again, I'm probably a generation well past Jerry West's life. For my dad, Jerry West was everything. Coming up and getting WVU to when he was very young, even to the national championship game, losing by just 1 point to California. Then going on to the NBA, having a long career in the NBA, successfully getting to the NBA Finals 6 times, and only winning one of them. That was the older generation. That's really the boomer generation. Jerry West is, in silent generations, really their hero. But for me, his career being well past whenever I was born and growing up, only ever admiring him from what you can see in documentaries or what's being talked about whenever he was on, ESPN or, at the NBA featuring him because of his long years as an executive. But, coming up from very poor conditions, being abused by his dad, his older brother dying in the Korean War, being kind of a guy, not small in stature, but really a skinny guy from the thick parts of Appalachia, and trying to make his way in Los Angeles, California as a professional, but even more so from that of what he had to throughout his career in terms of the facing of losing, yet still continuing to give it your all every single time. A guy, 14-time All-Star. I think it's funny how Chuck Howley and Jerry West are the only two. So they're former Mountaineers who have won Most Valuable Player awards when their teams lose in the championship of their sport. Howley doing it in the NFL, West doing it in the NBA. And so many countless times that Jerry West and teams would fall short. And yet, just continuing to move forward, getting better. The list of accolades speaks for themselves. And then how he was able to be a great ambassador for the game of basketball beyond his, playing career. 4 years as a coach of the Lakers, and then for years as an executive. Really, that's where he made his mark with different franchises. So, but always continuing to give back to the university, speak fondly of the state, make quiet appearances here and there, not looking for any sort of public notoriety or any sort of the cameras in his face, anything like that. Even when Johnny West, who now I know Johnny West's career, playing, as a guy who was kind of an off-the-bench contributor, shooter here and there, especially for the Final Four team in 2010, but those Big East years, never really wanting the spotlight necessarily on him, not necessarily shying away from it when asked, like really going completely hermit whatsoever, but more so just being a great ambassador for the game when called upon. but also just not ever losing where he came from. I mean, Los Angeles to West Virginia, night and day. And I think, like, I don't think necessarily whenever ESPN's Sanford Steve and Scott Van Pelt talked about it, I think that night, the day of his passing earlier this week, and speaking to Mountaineer fans, I think they did a really good job of talking about the fan base and what that meant, like what that meant, but trying and I think it was an admirable account of what they were trying to personify in, like, a Michael Myers per se. You get knocked down 100 times only to get back up 101. You can't kill them; they'll never give up. I think that's pretty close, but you're missing the mark even just more so. I'm a big Game of Thrones fan, and I think it's kind of timely with the new season of House of the Dragon coming out tomorrow evening. But what I would say is, and if you're a Game of Thrones fan yourself, is like identifying Mountaineer Nation with the fans of the North, who absolutely work, toil the ground, live, grow, die in the North, and it will always be their home, even though to some people it's not the most glamorous of places. I would say, especially during the winter in the show, when it looks like it's below freezing out there, it's not as beautiful as, say, a Los Angeles, California, where it never rains, apparently. But for all of the people in Game of Thrones, the North is their home, and they love it. And in the case of the comparison to Jerry West, he is the Ned Stark. He is Jon Snow. He was a guy who was able to take on all of the adversity of the things that he faced, while carrying the chip on his shoulder on behalf of West Virginians. And I think that's kind of, as a fan, the chip on West Virginia fans' shoulders that we carry all the time. And that might be a topic for a different video, I feel like, of identifying exactly what that chip on your shoulder is. But I mean, just think back through the decades. 88 in football, not winning a national championship, and Major Harris separates his shoulder on the very first drive against Notre Dame. 93, you get passed over to play for a national championship in another undefeated season, only to get walloped by the University of Florida. I won't even go there about 2007. All the many things that have happened on the basketball court, of getting so close but not getting to a national championship. Baseball, just this past week, making a super regional for the very first time, and then running into a team that just has more talent than you. And your brightest and best soldier on that team throws 144 pitches and gives it his absolute all out there. Like, that West Virginia is always, and I've made this case before, is that West Virginia is always much better as a David than it is as a Goliath. That if you give West Virginia a slingshot and a few rocks, they can take down a Goliath. Say a Georgia in the 2006 Sugar Bowl in their backyard of Atlanta. And that I guess the rocks in the form of Pat White and Steve Slayton. So that's what I mean to say is that we hold on to those players like a Jerry West, putting them maybe at the very top of the Mount Rushmore, and say, this is who you want your program to be. Someone who can face adversity, especially if they're from the state of West Virginia, carry on that man. And even if they're not from the state of West Virginia, but once a Mountaineer, always a Mountaineer. So you carry that with you wherever you go, whether it's across the nation, across the world. Give it your all the time. Give back, and wear the fly this flying WV proudly wherever you go. And be as upstanding of a citizen as you can be in the entire process. And Mountaineer Nation will always be behind you, no matter what. Stubborn to, and that's what I mean. We will have your back, because that is who we are. You never, never give up, never, surrender. I'm down here and I get a college football magazine to read while I'm here on the beach, and my father-in-law kind of jokes with me as my wife saying, or like, what are you reading here? And my wife jokes, oh, college football, got to study college football, breathe college football, live college football, analyze it. And he knows I'm a West Virginia fan and the agony that I go through whenever they lose and stuff. Maybe it's time to like take a break or maybe find another team or something like that. And that thought process doesn't even come across my brain. That's just like, that's how, I will live for the rest of my life, die that way. If for better or worse, that's the kind of commitment that you have as a West Virginia fan, and it's agonizing. It's truly agonizing. I feel so much more relief sometimes of the stress of the fear of losing whenever they win, rather than enjoying the victory. I don't know if I've heard that term before. If you watch the show Shoresy on Hulu, it's you don't necessarily like to win, you just hate to lose. So that's sometimes a challenge, I feel like, for Mountaineer fans like myself to enjoy the moment, to relish in whatever accomplishments that you can relish at the time. And that's what I think ultimately that worries me so much, and is a constant theme on any video that I make here for this channel, with the changing of the guard and the professionalization of college athletics, is because I've seen the way this has gone over the last decade and a half-ish with Major League Baseball, is that once you get to a point where the financial ramifications, because the money being the root of all evil, the financial ramifications where the Dodgers and the Yankees are competing up here, and whatever money that you potentially can bring in only brings you down here, and you're talking about between the differences of tens of thousands of dollars between what player X can be paid. Does a West Virginia keep a player such as a Jerry West, a Major Harris, a J.J. Weatherholt, you can name any, Tavon Austin, across your biggest sports whenever it becomes apples to oranges comparison. So that's why, it's ever as important. And I know I don't want to like taint this video talking about the life and legacy of Jerry West, but it also just goes, I think it's part of what he did on behalf of the university is, being such an ambassador for WVU basketball, and then there are others in other sports who do the same. So that's what we as fans can only hope for out of these guys. We don't want them to, cast away and never think about West Virginia again, and burning any sort of bridges where you don't have any sort of a connection back to the university. That's the complete opposite of what I feel like Mountaineer Nation wants and the program wants for its players. But also, you have to be corporate enough that you are creating a cycle that West Virginia can continue to recruit, retain professional league talent. Because that's what ultimately, as we look ahead into the next 100 years of collegiate athletics, as it looks more and more professional, that's what it's going to come down to, is dollars and cents. So, I think that's a good enough wrap to say is that Jerry West was, the Abraham Lincoln, George Washington, however you want to rank the top of the presidents that are on Mount Rushmore, right up there. I mean, with the story and emblematic, right alongside Sam Huff, right around that same kind of era and what he was able to do at WVU, taking the basketball team to the national championship game, which it has never accomplished up to that point in time. Having a long, storied career in the professionals, both as a player, coach, executive, and then beyond the court, the way he was able to be an ambassador for the state, for the university, giving back, getting his number retired quietly, humbly, and never doing it in a way as if it, all the attention, all the eyes back on me. Even though, his list of accomplishments probably will never be achieved once again by another Mountaineer. At least maybe during my lifetime, who knows. But also how he was able to be, a personified legend in his own right on behalf of representing what Mountaineer Nation, being a West Virginian, is, and taking that adversity and your chip on your shoulder, using it to drive you and never giving up, never surrendering, never taking hard defeats. Hard defeats in college, in the pros, and continuing to move forward. And that is who we are, and that's what I think guys like Sanford Steve and Scott Van Pelt recognize. I think that's what they respect. I think that's what a lot of fan bases respect out of West Virginia fans, in comparison to some of the other fan bases across the country, which can be more fair weather. But it doesn't mean that we're not grouchy. It doesn't mean that we're not stubborn. It doesn't mean that there are differences between fans like myself, and then there are fans who would still love to see Neil Brown get axed tomorrow, Rich Rodriguez be planted back as the head coach, and think the way things were is the best way forward for the university. So it's not perfect. It's never going to be perfect. But we all have this all common cause, this common dedication, this common, I don't even know how to say it other than this, a chip on your shoulder that you love and adore West Virginia and want to see what's best for it moving forward. And it's just hope that the forces of college football, college basketball can be a little more favorable for West Virginia as we enter into this next iteration, this next phase of what it is. Because it hasn't been, because of the leaving the Big East Conference, joining the Big 12 Conference, and the constant influx nature of the Big 12 has not been any sort of help to West Virginia in its cause of trying to get back to levels that it has been in sustaining in football, but basketball and baseball. Baseball totally different. Don't count that one. But irregardless of whatever happens, that we Mountaineer fans will continue to root on our teams proudly. And it's all because of guys like Jerry West who set the standard. So thanks for tuning in for this video. Love to hear your thoughts. What's your favorite Jerry West memory? What do you think of him and what he represents for the state, for the university, for the athletic program? Am I off? Am I right on? Let me hear your thoughts. Leave your comments here on YouTube. Thanks for tuning in. Let's go.